What are some unethical life hacks? Story 1. There's clothing that allows you to do virtually everything. Want to do graffiti? Wear one of those white papery overalls. Steal a street sign, carry a toolbox, dress like a mechanic. And you're good to go. Dress up like a technician, walk into an office, tell somebody you were told to take that PC, and you can just walk out with it. Be where you don't belong? Hold a clipboard and look stressed. Never underestimate how little people question the uniform. A clipboard and a stressed face got me into my son's school, past 3 teachers, and into a room where I collected evidence for use in his defense after he was tormented by other kids. 5 kids swarmed him in 7th grade while he was in nothing but boxers after the gym. He sustained a serious injury that required half a day of taking an ambulance ride to the emergency room and a procedure for the injury. The next morning, as kids were arriving at school, I waltzed in with a clipboard in my hand and a digital camera in my suit coat pocket. I went to the locker room to take pictures of the scene and the locker with the missing handle for evidence at his suspension hearing. Zero tolerance means that even if you were the one swarmed, you are automatically suspended for 3 days. When I met with his principal and the assistant superintendent of schools, they said they were still going to suspend an honor student who was clearly the victim. I got up under the principal's nose and offered to take him down to the locker room, bring in 4 of my friends, do the same thing to him that my son experienced, and see if he was willing to fight back or not. We eventually went to court, and the kid wound up having to move to another school system as well as pay us for medical expenses and damages. It was still a freaking nightmare. It's almost worth it to see my son make a complete fool out of the defendant's defense attorney. Story 2. Get a burner phone and use yourself as a reference on job applications. Do you have gaps in your work history? Fill them in with fake freelance computer work or renovations. I was a fake reference for someone. The company did call. They got the job and make almost double what I make. I didn't feel bad at all. He had the skills and the ability, just nowhere near enough credentials for the job. Plus, he has children, so I had no issue helping juice up his resume. Or use a place that has recently gone out of business or doesn't even exist as a reference. I went to a technical school for welding, and when I got out, I found any company paying more than $12 an hour required at least some actual work experience in addition to schooling. I did have a decent resume for my age, but nothing in welding, so I made up a company called BS Fab Shop in a small town on the other side of the state, and I said I worked there for a year. They didn't call the number I gave, but I was hired. That has got to be the worst fake shop name I have ever heard. Story 3. Lie badly 10% of the time. White lies and small stuff that people can't be bothered calling you out on, so instead they just let it slide. If you have a reputation for being a bad liar, then you will need to lie well so that everyone will believe you. Stuff that people don't really care about, like, oh, I couldn't make it to the dinner with you guys, I have to blank, even though I was clearly playing video games. The occasional personal thing, being late back from lunch at work or whatever, throw in a stutter at the beginning, look down at the floor for some part, and say a little to break the pause. It's enough to show that you didn't think it through. It's also never bad to show that you are typically an honest person, though. If someone asks about something, maybe what someone said about them, etc., just be generally helpful and honest, but come off as a bad liar. But then, when you really have to go deep on something, know exactly what you were going to say and make the cover ambiguous enough to make the other party never actually try to verify. And during the delivery, give the raised eyebrows and mildly surprised look and engage eye contact. Don't look down. You want them to believe that you believe it, and they would be hurt if they didn't. I'm not saying to be a terrible person or try to screw over other people, but there are some times when it's better to lie about something. Maybe it'll save your job or relationship, or at least let it end on better terms, etc. Then be truthful. People sometimes can't handle the truth, or won't actually believe that it has a different impact on you than it does on them. Story 4. I worked at a Home Depot while I was in college. Almost every single shift, I would steal a little something. A big part of the job is to pick up misplaced items and put them back where they belong. Employees all over the store are constantly finding stuff that customers leave in the wrong place. You put the items in your big apron pockets and carry them around until you can put them away. At the end of each day, I would always have a large bolt, a drill bit, a router bit, etc. Something small but valuable. After a few months, I was part-time, I had a small box worth of stuff. I went to another Home Depot across town and dumped all the stuff on the return desk and had them return it for store credit. It was about $250. I told them we started a project and then the job got canceled. Now you will definitely get blacklisted for doing this. I couldn't return anything at Home Depot without a receipt for a year or so. They know the stuff is stolen, but they can't really say anything. I got a lovely Fane Multimaster out of it. This was a year ago, by the way. I'm not normally a thief, I just hated working at Home Depot so much, and they paid me terribly. Also, unless there is an asset protection employee present, you can literally walk out of the door at any Home Depot with a cart full of tools. The asset protection guys are authorized to tackle you, but regular employees can't do anything. I watched a guy push a cart full of power tools through a line of employees, including the store manager, who were all holding hands in a chain to prevent him from leaving. He just broke the ranks and walked out. That must have been quite a sight, with a bunch of employees holding hands to stop that dude from leaving. Hilarious. And swiping stuff from your local Home Depot is something you find a bit too much. The life hack in Story 8 might be your thing. Story 5. Got experience but no degree? As long as you have proof of experience, portfolio references, etc., you can, in most cases, spoof your degree on your resume. Don't use an Ivy League school. Pick a state school or even a decent community college, and don't make it over the top, just a basic degree in the field you're experienced in. The same goes if you dropped out of high school or got a GED. Nobody checks these things, so if it asks, simply tick high school diploma or something similar. On your resume, put the high school of the city you grew up in, if different from the city you're currently living in. If they see a degree listed and a whole plethora of experiences and examples, they'll assume the degree is valid because who wants to do the extra work? Not many. A lot of employers, when they list degree requirements, won't even give you an interview if you don't meet their requirements. Sometimes they'll take X amount of years of experience in place of a degree, but not everybody is that understanding. I don't condone lying, but it is doable if you're smart about it. Story 6. You didn't hear this from me, but in Florida, if you are filing for food stamps, there are some items that we take client statements for and do not need proof at all. Childcare under $200 a month. If every kid's childcare expense is $199, it goes to your budget without proof. Rent, as long as it's reasonable sounding. Utilities are done off a standard allowance, so inflating those numbers won't help you like most people try. Unless your electric bill is included in your rent, you don't get it. Unless you say something like, $5 for fuel oil, I own a lamp, and I use it to heat or cool the house. Boom, $375 towards your budget. If you're going to college, keep that information to yourself. It will destroy your budget. It makes no sense. No amount of anything will save a budget for a college student. If you are 18 to 49 and don't work or have kids, you are an able-bodied adult without dependents and will be pulled from the budget until you get work, unless you meet an exemption. The easiest one, I take care of Nana. She's elderly. I go over there every once in a while and help her out. Boom, exempt. When I think of more, I'll let you know. Story 7. Free video games for 30 days or for maximum return time. Go to the local Best Buy and buy the video game you want with a gift receipt. Obtain a plastic razor blade. Go home and boil a pot of water. Hold one end of the plastic-wrapped video game over boiling water for several minutes. This loosens the glue at the bottom. Use the plastic razor blade to carefully and painfully loosen the seal. Slide the video game case out and enjoy. Store plastic somewhere safe so it doesn't lose its shape, or better yet, put another game case inside. When time has run out, you put the game back inside the plastic wrap and use clear glue to reseal it. Go return it with a gift receipt and exchange it for another game. Rinse, repeat. Just a note, you probably want to swap between at least 2 different stores so they don't start to suspect you. Cool, but nah, I don't think I have the guts to do this. Story 8. When shopping for clothes, swap the tags for a cheaper item. Now you have to be tactical. Make sure the tag you swap with is a similar item to avoid suspicion at the till. Most workers at the till don't even look at the till when scanning, but just in case, you don't want them to scan a white smart shirt and the till comes up with blue flip-flops. Most mid-range clothing shops have tags tied on with string instead of those plastic things. Just undo and swap. Peeling stickers off sale items and carefully placing them over the new item is also effective. This can be easily done in the changing rooms. Of course, you're still paying money, but you can reduce the cost of things massively. In the unlikely event you get questioned, just say you found the clothes already like that and blame incompetent staff for putting labels on the wrong things. This is my quiet way of rebelling against those ridiculously priced brands. Story 9. I don't think this is particularly unethical, but it would probably irritate a few people. So, a few years ago, I got laid off from a job. When unemployment ran out, I got another job doing almost the same thing for the same money. Only this time, instead of being full-time, I was a part-time casual. I was 37 at the time, wasn't married, and had no kids. I was the guy that called at all hours to come in and work. Well, I did a great job and they offered me a full-time position, but I refused it. I didn't want to work for a company that would lay me off eventually, and I also didn't want to be forced to purchase an expensive health insurance plan that wasn't that great and pay for it out of my pocket. All full-time employees had to do that, but part-time drivers did not. My boss liked me and the job I did, so he was cool with it. Every once in a while, the work would dry up, so I'd file unemployment and collect my $300 a week until they called me to come in for more work. When they called me, maybe I'd work 10 hours a week for 1 week, or maybe I'd work 25 hours a week for 6 weeks. When they said they didn't have anything for me, I'd refile my claim, which would be replenished because I had worked. I did this for 2 years. I had a paycheck almost every week, whether I worked or not, and I spent my days hiking and riding my bicycle, playing video games, gardening, and enjoying my life. I had enough to pay my mortgage and keep my car. I even bought a motorcycle. Eventually, they laid me off for good, so I went back on unemployment, and by the time it ran out, I was enrolled to get a second bachelor's. Those were the best 2 years of my life. Collecting paychecks, even when not working, and doing the stuff you love? How can I get on that? Man, some of these hacks are amusing, but some are actually quite useful, and I bet you think so too. And for sure, these aren't the only things you're going to pick up from my videos. So if you want to keep watching, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Story 10. I was living overseas. I had bought a new apartment that was still under construction. When I saw the plans, I was mortified. The stairs were backward, they had walls where none should be, as they would block off several square meters of living space that my kids could use, etc. I spoke to the supervisor and he said, "Yeah, you're right. Well, you'll have to pay someone to come in and demolish the walls, and all that stuff's already been built. You cannot do it yourself." Right. So I didn't shave for a couple of days. I bought a huge sledgehammer. I waited for the weekend. I put on some old jeans and dirty worker type clothes and just walked into the site looking all angry and not making eye contact with anyone, while lugging this huge sledgehammer over my shoulder like a construction worker. I added the hard hat and safety glasses for effect. It seemed to work. Nobody paid any attention to me. I smashed the walls I didn't want and threw all the rubble out the window. Problem solved. It didn't cost me a dime. Unethical? Nah. Story 11. At self-checkout, ring up non-organic vegetables, but get organic ones. It also works for items requiring codes. Pick up a cheap item, let's say candy, when you're actually taking something more expensive. It's not really unethical, but you can make up a fake quote for any remodeling or landscaping job, then call some company that advertises that they will beat the competition. If the price is still reasonable, most companies will try to get your business. When throwing a party, I like to shop for my drinks in the manager's special section. Needless to say, I don't have many friends. When trying to clean something, make sure the cleaning product you're using actually gets rid of the stuff you're trying to clean, not just the surface stains. Google it. On a serious note, did you know that if you accidentally use a Sharpie on the dry erase board, you can clean it off by applying a dry erase marker on top of the Sharpie and then simply erasing it? Yep, I got an A in math class for saving my teacher on this one. Not really unethical, though. Story 12. Most people don't realize just how easy it is to get someone to take your SATs for you. So here's how it's done. Find someone who's very smart, very trustworthy, and willing to take your test for cash. Try not to ask too many people, as word might start spreading around your school and some teachers might catch wind of your plan. Be prepared to offer a lot of money. Anywhere between $300 and $500 would probably be enough to get a kid in high school to do just about anything. Don't pay them up front. If you do, then you'll run the risk of them taking your money and ultimately not taking the test. So unless you're willing to dish out some street justice, you could very well end up getting screwed. If you need to add some incentive, then either offer them some more money or give them half up front and then the other half after they take the test. The SATs only require you to have your school ID to confirm your identity, so you'll need to make a fake school ID for the person taking your test. Fortunately, this is pretty easy to do with Photoshop. Just scan the person taking your test's ID as well as your own and simply cut and paste their photo on top of your ID. Print out on some high-quality glossy paper and laminate it. This is the most important step, so make sure you don't mess it up. Register to take your SATs somewhere far away from your school. This way, you don't run the risk of someone recognizing the person taking your test. Also, the people administering the test usually work for the school that you've registered to take the test at. So there's a good chance the person checking IDs won't have seen many, if any, matching IDs to your school. Make sure the person taking your test doesn't have any real identification on them, just in case things go bad. Be sure that your test taker doesn't get too high of a score. For example, if your GPA is 2.4 and you score 1,540, it's going to raise lots of eyebrows. You don't want that kind of attention, so advise them not to go for gold. However, if you have a great GPA, then this doesn't apply. Pay your test taker right away. You don't want to make enemies with this person as they hold your educational future in their hands. And that's about it. Just be warned, this is extremely high risk, high reward. But if you can pull it off, then you just might get into the college of your dreams. Story 13. Not me, I swear, but my brother in law would buy one of those gas engine lawn trimmers every spring from Sears, of course. Use it all summer. Come fall, he'd put extra oil in the gas tank, take it back to Sears, and complain that the engine was ready to blow. Then he'd proceed to start it up right in the store. Sure enough, smoke would pour out of the exhaust. They couldn't get him out of the store fast enough with a new one, of course. The same brother in law would turn his electric meter upside down for 1 week every month. The meter runs backwards when you do that, so you're only really paying for 2 weeks of electricity every month. He lived in that house for 10 years. He never got caught. Rest his soul. That man was a genius. Story 14. High visibility vent works pretty much as an invisibility cloak in many places. It works best if combined with a basic trucker-style outfit. I used to drive a delivery truck as an intern job. Stores, hospitals, you name it. I just walked in the loading bay doors and no one ever asked me what I was doing. The company often had a completely unmarked van, and that didn't raise any questions either. It reminds me of a case from a year ago around here. Someone drove a semi to some huge grocery store, loaded 4 pallets of beer onto it, and drove off. No one batted an eye. Story 15. Are you looking for an MP3 of a certain song, or something like an ebook or the like? If you just do a Google search on it, you might notice that near the bottom of the page, it will say something like, in response to multiple complaints we received under the U.S. Digital Millennium Copyright Act, we've removed 2 results from the page. If you wish, you may read the DMCA complaints that caused the removals at complaint. If you click on either link, it will show you the exact website that had the infringing content and the exact place that offered it. The infringing websites tend to still be active, and they have a legit copy of whatever it was too, since it got the attention to remove the link from the search engine after all. Story 16. If no one stops you from doing something, then just do it. See a queue and don't want to wait? Just cut in line. A lot of times, people won't do anything except grumble. If someone calls you out, you just go to the end of the line where you would have been anyway. Basically, it's all upside, no downside. I can see how this can be helpful to get ahead in life if you do it reasonably, but whenever I've seen people do it, it basically means them screwing over a bunch of people to get ahead. Story 17. You can use an empty Visa Rewards Bank card to make in-flight purchases. The cards cannot be run while in flight, so all transactions are completed once you land, so you can receive any item you want for free. There is no way to track the failed transaction because your information is not tied to the card. My friend is a pilot, and I've done this for years. Works on Southwest flights where they don't have assigned seating and can't trace the charges back to your seat or name. But just an important reminder, this does not work on newer airlines and will probably work even less over time. Most newer aircraft and airlines now have in-flight Wi-Fi, which is provided to employees. They will either use a Square-type reader via phone app or a small Wi-Fi-enabled card reader. Either way, they can now run your card normally while you're airborne. Story 18. In most stories, employees aren't allowed to stop you from shoplifting on their own due to policy. The most they can do is call the police. I worked in retail security before. It surprised me how many people easily bend to the will of a $10 an hour security guard. Every time I'd ask someone to come with me, they'd do it. Then I'd call the police and they'd wait there, sometimes for half an hour. You can run away. Store security has zero authority to detain you. Story 19. Most paid car parks have a lost sticker button, which is the maximum daily fee. If you feel like parking for a week or so, just press that button instead of paying for the week. My buddy parked in the hourly parking lot at the airport by accident instead of the long term. He went to leave and they said his total was like $800. He said he couldn't pay it and so they wouldn't let him leave. He called his girlfriend, she showed up, parked, and got a ticket. He then gave her money and told her to say she lost her ticket so she only paid the daily maximum of $30 or whatever. Meanwhile, he drove out and used her ticket, which was free since the clock in and clock out were less than half an hour apart. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what's the most unethical thing you've done that you're not proud of. Story 4 is kind of childish. See you on that video.